this credit wouldn't be paid off. Oh, absolutely not. I mean, it's, the credit, you might as well put it in the paid category. You got to be positive. Now, you're not lying, but it's not your intention to default on the goddamn credit. I've had guys that have gone out, if interest rates go against me and the industry changes, what kind of fucking answer is that? For real, they do. And then they wonder why it doesn't get, the guy doesn't do it for him. And so, no, it's not going to go into. And he said, well, a lot of guys that are doing this development over in this area of town have defaulted because they couldn't. Yeah, well, that's them. That's not me. Look at that fucking team. I mean, these guys are fucking thoroughbreds. Look at this fucking chairman Doofus and all these guys. And, and it's the truth. That's why you have those guys on your team, to make sure that doesn't happen. So you don't wind up being an also-ran. You've got a successful deal. And that's what they want to hear. They mark it down, in their little file, and, they move forward. Sit in the front of your chair, straight back. I mean, all the things that I'm sure that Leonard can Google them, and so you don't look like act like a gypsy, so you're professional. And there are professional gypsies, so don't give me any shit with emails. So you assume the positive. Whoop, did I go back? No, that's right, okay. Instant track record. How do you get an instant track record? 2 ways. Number 1, you create your dream team. 1. And 2, you joint venture with somebody else that's got an instant, long track record. So there's 2 ways to do this. No, there's only 1 way. The dream team, but I mean, if somebody says that for whatever reason, because sometimes they'll say, Rance, we have this other opportunity. Would you consider joint venturing with them? Yes. And then you look at the numbers. But because if they're doing that, that's a credit that they either had a problem with, they don't like the management team, they like your management team. So that's a beautiful thing when that happens. Doesn't happen often, but it does happen. It does happen. Presentation with institutions, selling the vision, presenting skills. You got to practice your presentation skills. If I'm still practicing my presentation skills, then you ought to be practicing yours. I went through the seminar 5-6 times before you guys got here, and you can't be too prepared. You can't be too prepared. And we've talked about, the presenting. You want to position yourself to go public from day one, even though it may not be for 5 years. That means you're going to have audited financials. That means you're going to be ready. You're going to have you're going to have the things. So if an opportunity presents itself overnight, and it won't be overnight, but it presents itself, you can get it done right away. Plus, financial institutions feel more comfortable with audited financials. And, I don't know what the rule of thumb is. I don't think there is a rule of thumb. But you're more likely to get 10, 20%, 30% more leverage because they'll think the numbers are good. Now, if you're auditing them with your brother-in-law, Pancho Villa from fucking, where are they killing everybody down there in the border town? Laredo. No, that's not what I mean. But if you got a reputable accounting firm that's doing your numbers. When I look at in-house numbers versus, audited numbers by somebody else, I just give more credibility. Well, I won't buy anything that doesn't have audited numbers. Excuse me. And whenever you start, it's because you're going to exit. And when the banks, and especially, for sure the private equity guys, they want to hear exit strategy because that's how their exit is and that's how they're going to get paid back. They want to hear that. They don't want to hear that you're going to build a dynasty for the next 6 generations of your family. Although some people do. But I mean, that's not what the financial institutions want to hear. Finesse financing, leveraging banks against each other. That story's too long, but tomorrow morning, remind me to tell you how to do that, because there's a cute story that I did for one of my Hall of Famers. God rest his soul, he's dead now. Before I left, when I gave him his stock back, I said, I feel obligated to get the company recapitalized before I leave, in which I did. Gave him his stock back, and we didn't have a push-pull. Okay, so we'll jump back to that one tomorrow. IPO versus private placement, I told you that. The bottom line is you want the money. Honestly, legally, morally, okay? For everybody in this room, private placement, it's, first of all, friends, fools, family. Credit cards, friends, fools, family. Then commercial banks, whatever you can do. And then private placement with, remember, registered investors. You know, normally it's $1 million in net worth. I don't know what the numbers are now in the United States. And then IPO. But IPO, the multiples are much, much greater. You know, if you could sell the company for $10 million privately, you can probably sell the company for $15 million or more, because the multiples on an IPO are greater because people have liquidity. They can sell their shares. And there's difference in liquidity spreads on different stock exchanges. The New York Stock Exchange is terrific. The London Stock Exchange is terrific. But the Denver Stock Exchange in America is shit. Not shit, but I mean the multiples are less because there's less liquidity. There's less volume going through. So you want to try to do it on the biggest stock exchange you can. Amsterdam used to be pretty good. I don't know what it is now because I haven't been there in a long, long time. But my deal, and there's some pictures out in front of my office when I signed the deal, the president or chairman of the Amsterdam Stock Exchange signed the papers with me, and they make a big deal of being the first burst, the first stock exchange. You know, we were the ones that thought of it first. And then, of course, I brought up tulips. And of course, then my wife was Dutch and Finnish, so the fact that she was Dutch, didn't hurt us anything at all. Okay, when to use venture capitalists, investment bankers, private equity providers, stockbrokers. Okay, the bottom line is you want the money, okay? But each one of these has a different level of risk, or risk meaning, in other words, venture capitalists are going to put money in, put people on the board, and even though they may only have 40%, there's going to have some sort of golden vote that they can throw you out even if they only have 40%. Okay, so you want venture capitalists and hedge funds at the end of your continuum. Investment banks and stockbrokers, private equity providers, all these are guys that are going to have people on the board. People on the board, and which means they may have one person, they may ask for 3 people. People on the board that will ascertain whether they like the way you're running the company. When you have this big, powerful dream team, then normally, I've been in deals where they didn't put anybody on the board, but maybe one person on the board because they have confidence in what you're doing. But at the end of the day, even if they only have one person on the board, 99.9 times out of 100, they're going to have some sort of special vote that they can, if they don't like what you're doing, because they, you can steal the money. You can take the money out. And so they want the ability to take the company back and, and shore up the damage. So, yeah, and I know, well, we would never do that, but there are people that have gone in and they float the company, and there's £9 million in the bank, and they write a check for $7 million, and they go to Tibet. Hard to believe. Understanding the language of tools. Now, guarantees, royalty bonds, revenue bonds, options, preference shares, warrants, convertible bonds, derivatives, and all the other stuff, not important. But I know Leonard's going to Google fuck him. And if you want to know, just email him next week and he'll give you a whole dissertation, how they break down a risk profile, etc. I'm being sarcastic. I hope the fuck he doesn't. Okay? One, I hope the fuck you don't email him. And two, I hope the fuck he doesn't do that. All that is not important. None of those are important. Straight vanilla debt and equity is what you need to focus on. Debt and equity. You don't need to get fancy. Secured versus unsecured. The best of all world is unsecured debt. This is like a multiple orgasm for a guy. I mean, it's beyond your wildest dreams. Unsecured debt, meaning that I've convinced Rufus. Christoph is so in love with our deal that, that's why I asked, what's your credit limit? Unsecured. Oh, $5 million. We only need $4.8 million. What a fucking mitzvah. That's Yiddish for a miracle. What a fucking miracle. Anyway, so unsecured, that doesn't happen. There are virtually, not none, but very few unsecured debt deals going around. The best deal of all life is non-recourse and unsecured. Non-recourse and unsecured means you don't have to pay them back if the fucking deal folds. No recourse to the company or the individuals. You will never ever, I'll make a guarantee here today, you will never ever get one of those on your flying carpet. Can't you just see him with his fucking turban and the flying carpet, you know? Okay, non-recourse, that's a thing of beauty. Those are tough. Now, Warren Buffett can get a non-recourse unsecured loan, personal loan, and a few guys. But other than that, you're pissing in the wind. That's not going to happen. Okay, secured is going to be secured by the assets of the company, the shares of the company, and they're going to want a secondary source of security, and maybe even a third source of security. And that, for those of you that are in other deals, are going to say, okay, Rick, we want you to put your other company up as securing this loan for this other company. And, of course, he'll scream and yell, no, I'm not doing that. But they'll want, okay, and then a third, is they'll say, Rick, because you're such a big fucking hitter, we want you to personally sign. Okay? And I can just see, you know. And then he'll go to his dad and say, Dad, could you sign for me? And he said, wait a minute, let me put the broom down. You don't need to know, YouTubers, what I'm talking about. But anyway, and to get your first deal down, there's a lot of guys and gals that have signed personally. Okay. Long and short-term debt. Short-term debt is less than a year. Long-term debt is more than a year. And they may structure part of it's long-term, part of it's short-term. At the end of the day, as long as legal, moral, ethically, etc., as I keep saying, you want the money, okay? And I don't fight over fees very much, and I don't fight over interest rates very much. Of course, interest rates are fucking low now. You know, and fortunes are built on low interest rates. Now, how long interest rates are going to be low? I don't know. But they've been low a lot longer than I thought. Which, never underestimate how wrong you can be. But now's the time to leverage. Now's the time. Now, in 6 months, when interest rates triple or quadruple, but even if they do that, they won't be too high. But I was doing deals when they had 20% interest rates. And I mean, if you think it's tough to make money at 3% interest rates, you've got no idea what it's like at 18 or 20. That was 40 years ago, but we were still doing deals. Okay, YouTubers, thank you. We'll see you in the morning. And it's like sex here. It all comes at the end, a crescendo. Thanks. Okay.